Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to another session of Waking Up to Win with myself, Stuart. And on today's call, I've got Stephen. Now, Stephen's going to be talking to us about a program that really has a very, very high level of respect for all our agents here in EXP. And that program is called the Icon Award, that Icon program that every agent wants to get. We know that when you come into EXP, the first thing that you want to do is you want to become a cap agent, because that's how we get to earn that 96% commission. But then there's the level above. And that's exactly what we're going to dig into today, is talking about the Icon agent, what it takes. So Stephen, I want to thank you so much for your time, for coming onto this call. How are you today?
Great. Thanks, Stuart. Appreciate you having us here today.
No, fantastic. So I actually want to find out, who is Stephen? Because this is going to be one of the biggest questions a lot of people got. It's like, Stuart, why have you got this guy Stephen on the actual call? What has he got to do with Icon? What has he got to do with EXP? So I want to find out from you, who is Stephen?
Yeah, so I am the Icon program manager here at EXP. So we as a program, we oversee not only the US, right, as far as Icon agents, but commercial, Canada, South Africa, and all the global countries at EXP. So we're actually kind of going around to a few of them right now and doing something similar and presenting and letting the agents know, how to achieve Icon, what is the Icon program, and then what are some of the requirements needed, after you hit those production numbers. So put a little slide deck together to hopefully explain some of that in a simple fashion for you, and then we can always open it up for questions and answers afterwards. I have a team member of mine, Sheila Cobb, who's also on the call too. So if you have chats or quick questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and she can do her best to answer those during the call. But we can obviously go over some of those after we get through the slide deck as well too. So
Fantastic.
Appreciate you having us.
No, it's always a pleasure. It's always nice to have our bigger brothers and family here on these particular calls and helping us to share it. And this is one of the big things that has actually come across when I've dealt with our global community. The community is actually quite small. When we go into the EXP world, it's actually quite small. It's like we're in this little neighborhood. So it's always nice to be able to reach out and get this information. So Stephen, give us an introduction of the Icon program. Take it away.
Yeah, so specifically, again, we'll talk obviously just about South Africa here. But what is the Icon program? It celebrates all of our agents while also highlighting those who achieve, an exceptional production level, right? So we're looking at those very top few percentage of the company that are reaching these production goals, and we want to award those agents for doing so, right? So what does that come with? It comes with some benefits. You can receive up to the 150,000 Rand in Icon stock awards. Now, that is broken into 3 different categories, right? First category is for reaching those production goals. So when we start talking about an agent and their life cycle or their career with EXP, Stuart mentioned earlier, right? That first goal is to reach your cap, right? And we'll kind of go into that a little bit. But then after you reach your cap, it's going above and beyond that cap and reaching those additional production requirements to get into the Icon program, right? Once that happens, which is when you receive that first 75,000, then you can open up opportunities to get additional awards in what we call the cultural commitment, as well as for attending EXP approved events. And it's 5,000, and it's broken into technically 2 different events for 2,500. And again, we'll go over that in a little bit more detail when we move through the slides here. But some other benefits, right? We obviously want you to be recognized as an Icon agent. So if you're going into EXP World, right, they got a nice badge that they put on your avatar when you're going in there. There's some exclusive brand kit stuff and company-wide recognition in life period, exprealty.com. So a few different things that we do have in there, but again, the biggest benefit, right, is you're trying to get to those production numbers so that you can start getting that EXPI stock award.
No, fantastic. And, you know, this is something everybody wants to get into because, you know, we touched on capping that 150,000 Rand, which is that cap portion. But when you get to icon status, it actually then can come back to you in those EXPR shares. So start explaining the actual requirements. What is actually required from an agent in order to get to that particular level? Because we understand how to become a cap agent, but how do we get to become an icon agent?
Right. So again, Stuart was one of the people that was in on some of the initial calls here with us, but we recently just made some updates to the production requirements. So I want to go over those two options with you guys here. So the first option, again, right, you can keep with both options. You got to get to that cap status with your company dollar, right? Once you hit that 150,000, then those other two options start to have a little bit of a difference. So in option one, you hit the 150,000 Rand. Then after that, you're paying 15,000 in a capped status transaction fee. So I underlined it here, right? Because you guys pay a transaction fee on every transaction, correct? So once you hit that capped status of the 150, then we start looking at calculating out the capped transaction fees up to that 15,000. So once you hit the 15,000, now we're also looking at a minimum of 35 closed transactions. So those three things, right? Your company dollar, your 15,000 in cap status transaction fees, and a minimum of 35 closed transactions, that would qualify you under option one. The second option is a little bit different, right? It's more based off of GCI. So there's still the 150,000 in the company dollar. It's a 3 million in Rand for a minimum gross commission income and a minimum of 10 closed transactions. So that also kind of helps to cover maybe somebody in like a commercial sales or luxury sales, you know, to give them an option that they might not be closing as much, but they're still a very high producing agent and hitting high GCI amounts. And we want to make sure that they still have that opportunity to, you know, get the award too.
No, fantastic. So those two options, and there's two ways of actually getting it. Obviously, both. You have to be a cap agent. That is actually primary. You've got to get to that cap status. Then option one, it's based more on the transaction, number of transactions, 35 closed transactions. But do remember that additional cap status transactional fee of 15,000 Rand. And I'm pretty sure that is going to be discussed deeper in the future with agents that are going to ask that particular question.
Right, yes.
Over the top. We'll obviously look into that a bit later. And the second one is really the one where it's your GCR, that gross commission. Get up to 3 million Rand in gross commission with a minimum of 10 transactions. Now, we know here in South Africa, if you're actually doing 10 transactions, it's going to be less unless you're getting into the luxury game. To hit up to that 3 million, you're going to be hitting close to probably the 20 to 30, depends on the actual gross commission of those particular deals. But you're going to be sitting around about that mark of how many properties, that's the average properties to get up to that 3 million. It's totally achievable, especially in the times that are going to be coming up. So, Stephen, with these two, and it's really, I'm just going to hop directly onto that paid additional cap status for the agents, because I know they're going to look at it and say, okay, so I've got my 4% transactional fee that I'm paying on every single deal. Does that mean I've got to pay an additional 15,000 Rand over and above? Or does it mean that 4% must reach that 15,000 Rand for it to qualify?
Right. So that kicks in after you hit. So if you're looking at your transactions, right, the transaction that helps you get to the company dollar and the 150,000 Rand, right, that transaction, the next transaction, they start calculating out your capped status transaction fees. So once you hit the 150, right, that transaction, the next one, right, that's when they're going to start counting in to look for that 15,000 total. So
fantastic.
the minimum transactions are everything, right? That one doesn't kick in after you cap or anything like that, right? They're just looking for a total of 35 as a whole during that capping period.
Absolutely. And so something on this is anybody can actually achieve this. You know, we've actually got a couple of our agents last month closed 15 transactions in 1 month. which means if we actually look at the projections in 2.5 months, he's actually going to be hitting, one, he'll hit cap, two, he's going to hit the minimum transactions, and he's going to fall straight into that category where he could actually become our first icon agent. So there are a number of ways to allow agents to get to that high level of that icon status. And that's what we all want every single one of you to do. Now, once you get to this, I know that that first 75,000 will come through to you. It doesn't come through to you on an automatic. It is vested, that 75,000. Can you recall for what duration that 75,000 is vested for?
Yeah. So when we start talking about the production requirements, right? So we hit the production requirements, whether it was option 1 or option 2. What's going to happen is South Africa's team, their transaction department is going to let us know they're tracking those numbers, right? Just alongside of the icon program themselves too. We're going to do a verification, right? We obviously have to verify that everything was in there. We're looking at the numbers. Once that happens, we're going to be granting that 75,000 that following month. So what does that mean though? So it does have a 3-year vest period on it. So if I'm awarded now in the month of December, it's going to have a 3-year vest period. And then at that point, that's when you have the option to do, whatever you need to do with it. But yes, you see it goes into your account, but you just can't really do anything with it for a 3-year period, because obviously we want to make sure that you're still remaining an agent here in good standing with the company. And all transactions, I know this is always a question, and it does differ sometimes depending on the country. So I want to make sure I'm covering this. All transactions must be completely settled and properly documented. So for example, right, like if I have a closing at the end of a month, all of that has to be settled. It's not like, they're not going to take it and look back a month to say, oh, well, you closed it here. You got to make sure everything's closed, because that's what transactions is looking at on their side. So.
No, fantastic. So, and this is all controlled through the rep platform. So once those transactions are actually coming in and they've gone to that end status where it's kind of finalized and closed. And the great thing here in South Africa, when it's finalized and closed, because that's when you get paid the commission on that particular deal. So that's when you'll know that it is all ready. So that's that first 75,000. So that's vested for 3 years. Hey, it's a commitment. You can always check into your ShareWorks program and you'll actually be able to see that particular growth over time. And the great thing is, and this is really when it goes into the ShareWorks and actually getting onto the actual stock exchange in 3 years, the chances of those shares going up in value I think is on a high, especially the way the world is going and the way this virtual, the share price from now to 3 years time, it's going to be a lot higher than it is. So in fact, if you're getting shares, it's always best to actually keep them. Don't be like the one that gets your shares and sells it. You keep it. You invest in yourself, and that's for 3 years. So now that's the first 75,000. That's that first half. But now we've still got another 75,000. Stephen, how do we get that? Because this is really now going, well, you said to me I'm getting 150, but you've only shared 75,000. What is the next 70,000? How do they get that?
Yeah, so the next 75, part of that is in the cultural, and it's for a full 70,000. What happens is, so if I'm on my timeline, right, I'm an agent, I'm selling. I finally hit those production marks, to achieve the icon. I've been into the, I'm now an icon agent in the program, right? I have the next 12 months after that period, which is what we call the icon cultural benefit year, to achieve the cultural benefits, right? To get that extra 70,000. What's that look like? So again, recent change, we're going to make it really, really easy to track so that agents know exactly what they're looking for. They need what we call 20 icon cultural commitment points, right? Really easy to get for the most part. It can be done in many different ways. I know Stuart, I don't know how much you talked about the mentor program, right? But mentor program will qualify as one of those ways to get 20 points. We can kind of go down, we'll go through the breakdown a little bit here in a little bit. Speaking, right? Maybe it's Stuart inviting you to a meeting like this where you're the one speaking as an agent and talking to other agents. There's opportunities there. If you decide to travel to an EXP con, right? I know there's been things out there that there could be some coming your direction, not necessarily, all the way over into the US. So those will be opportunities if you were speaking at, an EXP con or an event like that. Multiple different ways, but it's pretty easy to track, and it's all going to be shown in your My EXP. So again, My EXP is whenever you log in, right, there's more and more stuff and more information that we're trying to get in front of you, both from the Icon program and as a company as a whole, right? But it'll show right in there when you become an Icon agent. There's a little tile, and it'll actually show you, as you start earning points, where you're sitting at on that and how many. It gives you the date of, when that goes away. So we always want to make sure that when that time is, and what you still need to get there. But we do have an easy, what we call our points guide. We'll kind of give you a quick brief look at that to give you an idea. But again, it's the proverbial rising tides, lifts all boats, right? We want agents helping other EXP agents to achieve, goals in production and personally themselves too. So.
No, fantastic. And this is the culture. It's the give back culture. And really, if you really think about it, coming as a mentor, it's really giving back. When you're coming part of speaking, part of our AAC, anything of this nature, it's giving back to the agents. And that's really what it is. If you just think of the actual word icon, you want to become an icon. Well, what is an icon? An icon is something that everybody looks up to. And when you look up to them, they have this cultural gift to give back. And that's really worth 70,000 Rand in all of that. Now, that 70,000 Rand, do they get it immediately, or is it also vested? Explain how that operates.
Yeah, it is also vested. This was a change that we recently made as well. There used to have a 2-year vesting period on that cultural stock. We've actually dropped that down to 1 year. So what happens is I'm an agent, right? Again, I go and do 4 meetings. Let's say I get 5 points for each meeting. I achieve my 20 points, right? And it's now December 5th, right? So what's going to happen is our team's going to verify those awards, points with Stuart or somebody on the South Africa team. And we'll actually award that stock right at that time. And then there's a 1-year vest period after that. So pretty easy to get to that and to figure out how long it's going to be, because once we send it to you, right, it just has that 1-year vest period. So production is 3, cultural is a 1-year vest period. So a lot shorter. So it gives you a little bit more incentive to, so again, right, feedback into the agent population, get those points so that you can get that award and you can get that stock sooner.
No, fantastic. So that 1-year period, and trust me, if you actually think back, 2023 is nearly over. It's amazing how quick a year can actually go. So now we've spoken about the 75,000. We've spoken about the 70,000. So we're sitting at 145,000. So now we've got a little bit of pocket change, that 5,000 Rand right at the end. How do we get those last couple of Rands into our accounts? How do we get that?
Yep. So we're looking for basically event attendance. So, for example, right, if you'd go to an EXP con, you're paying to go there, right? You're going to, like the last year was in Vegas, right? The next year I think is in Miami. So you're going to one of those events. Whenever you go to one of those events, you buy a ticket, you check in, we make sure we're awarding you for that. So it's event attendance, a total of 5,000 broken down into 2 different events, 2,500 for each. Once you get that, the month after, we verify all attendance on our side, and then it's an immediate granting of that. There is no vesting period for the event stock. So once you go, we register it, we check it, we send it out, and then you have it. So 2 events for a total of 500 or for 5,000. And it's pretty easy. And I know we're going to be, again, working with Stuart and others in South Africa to make sure that there are some events that would qualify for this. There's obviously been a recent change, to us as well. We used to have EXP Con, we used to have shareholders. We are no longer moving towards shareholders. We're moving more towards regional events, even in the States. So we're probably looking at something similar in South Africa that we'll be in touch with here. And provide that extra opportunity for again, right, taking part in the company, giving back, and making sure that we award you for that. So
No, fantastic. And I think this is almost like a 5,000 Rand giveaway. I know for a fact, I've had conversations that we are looking at having these type of events, which would be locally or something that isn't within the feasible rate so that agents can
Right.
actually get attended to it. And the great thing is you're getting paid to go to something that you wanted to go to in the first place. That's what's mind-blowing to me. You get to the icon status, it almost feels like you're a bit of a celebrity. Why? Well, you get attended and you're getting paid 2,500 Rand for each event that you go to. So this icon actually takes you to, and I'm putting inverted commas, a celebrity status. So we look at all of this together. We've now got the 75,000 Rand, which then comes invested for 3 years. That really is basically the start of it. The 70,000 Rand, which is the cultural, only vested for 12 months. Now I'm going to change it from 1 year to 12 months because 12 months sounds a whole lot better. And then you got that final 5,000 Rand, which is really something that you get paid immediately. You don't have to wait for it. All you do is you attend the session, you attend those particular events, and trust me, there are events that are going to be coming up in the near future. So make sure that all our icon agents will definitely achieve that. Stephen, anything else you want to add on to what we've discussed and going a bit deeper?
Not really. I'd be happy to share, the view of the icon overview, right? A lot of the information that we saw in here was pulling right from the overview, which is available for you guys. We're updating some websites with stock, so some of these are going to be a lot easier to find and not have to, scour the EXP web to find it. It is going to become a lot easier and a lot more relevant for you guys to go out there and find. But this is the updated overview again, right? It talks about the benefits. There's sections specifically about the stock requirements, how those, if you really want to deep dive into how those are calculated, right, based off of what day of the month those are distributed and the stock price, right? A lot of that's explained in here in very good detail. So it is a good resource to have. And then we do have the icon cultural points guide in here to talk about the cultural side of it and how you can earn those. The good thing that I want to kind of go into with that, and I'll click on it here real quick, and I'll zoom in because I'm sure it's probably pretty small on here. So once again, right, it mentions the 20 points that we're looking for. It talks about speaker teaching opportunities to earn points. The mentor program, which is if you're part of the mentor program and you're working with a mentee, there is a 20-point option for it, right? Just to satisfy everything again, because we know that you're feeding into mentees. AACs are in here as well too. So if you decide to be part of the AAC, the participation in that will help satisfy. And then day of volunteering. Now this one's a little bit different. I know that I had talked to Stuart a little bit, and I know we still have some follow-up about things like Extend a Hand and I Heart EXP. Those things are starting to roll out a little bit more in the global side of the company, right? So hopefully we'll be able to get some events in there. Already know that we need to update shareholders now that we know that's no longer, going to be an option in here moving forward. But we also want to make sure that that there's always we're always looking for opportunities, right? So if there is something that, hey, I'm an icon agent now, I'm doing this. Is this something that qualifies for points, right? You can meet with our team. You can tell us what you're doing, and we can, potentially be able to award you what we call additional opportunity points for stuff, again, that you're already doing in your everyday career to help that would end up helping to feed back into EXP agents, and we want to make sure you're awarded for that. So again, a lot of this is linked in here. It's in the overview. If you have any specific questions, again, it talks about the stock prices, but other than that, yes, I if there's specific questions that you all have, feel free to let us know, and we'll be happy to answer for you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen, for going through all of this in quite a nice detail, because this is really where we want to get all of our agents to actually be going into the actual real estate world where you're actually recognized as an icon agent. In fact, it was going to be known in our industry that if you're dealing with an icon agent, you're dealing with a high performing agent, and you want to get to that particular status. The biggest question that we have here in South Africa is, who is going to be our first icon agent? That is something from a leadership point of view that we're all talking about. We want to know who that first person is. And I'm pretty sure in the next week or months, we're going to be seeing our very first icon agent. Stephen, I want to thank you so much for coming on to this particular call. It's always fantastic to have these particular chats. And I'd like to now open up for any questions. So if you've got any questions, the chat box, I'm about to actually push this little button over here, which is absolutely magnificent. You're going to see your microphone has changed from gray to red. So you can actually turn on your microphone. You can actually ask a question directly, or alternatively, you can pop it into the actual chat box. We are here for a good couple more minutes to actually entertain these particular questions, because are you going to be the next icon agent? That's going to be the question I want to find out. So are there any questions from anybody on this particular call? Either turn on your microphone, say hello, or pop it in the actual chat box. I love it. Stephen, you've actually knocked this out of the park. So we got one question from Maladi. How do you qualify to be an icon agent? So Maladi, I'm pretty sure that you came in maybe a little bit late. We did cover that in the beginning, right in the actual beginning, but there it is. Stephen has actually put that up onto the actual screen itself. Stephen, give us the 30-second version. What do they need to do to become an icon?
So the first thing to become an icon agent is hitting those production requirements. So again, there's two options to hit those production requirements. Both options, you first have to hit your company cap in 150,000 Rand, right? And then option one, it's either an additional 15,000 Rand after you hit that company cap in cap status transaction fees with a minimum of 35 transactions closed, or a GCI route if you're selling 3 million in Rand and closed at least 10 transactions, or 3 million in gross commission income, and then 10 transactions. That's how you become an icon agent, right? That's what we say. You hit the production, right? Once you hit the production, those additional options, you know, for the cultural and events open up, but the production's the number one thing. You got to hit that, and then everything else opens up after that.
Absolutely. So there's the 30-second version, Maladi, is basically it's getting into production, paying that 150,000, which is really going through those deals. In essence, 600,000 in gross commission, 12 million Rand in property sales. So that's all you really need to do. And if you're selling on average in South Africa, that's 7.5 properties. So make it 8 properties, and you can become a cap agent. That means you're already a couple of steps closer. And then get into those high level 35 transactions with the additional cap status of the 15,000 Rand per transaction, or alternatively, minimum of 10 transactions, 3 million Rand gross commission. Sounds like a big task. I know every single one of you can actually go ahead and do that. Saray will be attending events, but only be recognized after you capped. So that's actually a good question. So Stephen, if they are in the process, let's say for instance, EXP Con is hosted in the beginning half of the year. They go out and they attend EXP Con in that particular year. And then a month or two later, they hit that icon status. Do we look back at that particular event if it's still within that 12-month anniversary period?
So we don't look back. Everything, again, right? Everything kicks off once you hit the production. So you hit the production. Now, any events, you know, within that next 12 months that I attend, that's what's going to qualify for the potential stock event credit, right? But nothing before, right? We still obviously want you guys to come to events and everything, right? But nothing kicks in as far as the benefits until that production is hit first. And then after that production, the cultural and event pieces come in after. Yes, the 12 months after you cap, correct. Yeah, that's what we call our icon benefit year, right? You have your capping period, which never changes, right? That's, let's say it's 1/1 to 12/31, right? But when you hit the production, kicks off that next 12-month rolling period, and that's what we call that icon benefit period, and that's when you have the opportunities for cultural and events.
Absolutely. And the great thing here, Saray, is, and I've seen this with icon agents in the US, and Stephen, you can attest to this. They hit icon status in their first year. The chances of them hitting icon status in their second year increases exponentially. It's like becoming a cap agent. Once you become a cap agent, it's almost like every year, you're almost guaranteed, as long as you keep your production levels up, you're going to become a cap agent. So once you become an icon agent, your production levels are going to start to increase, which means the next year you're going to become an icon agent. And then you start getting those accolades of being a 3 times icon agent, a 4 times icon agent, or a 10 times icon agent. And that actually gives me a question while I was busy thinking of that. Who has got the most amount of icon awards? Do you know who that particular individual is?
Yes, it's Elizabeth Riley. She's one of our, Sheila can correct me if I'm wrong. She's from Texas, right? Sheila, I think she's coming up on her 9th award here, if she hasn't already got it. Yeah.
So this is where I want to put into the chat box. How would you like for me to interview Elizabeth Riley? If you want me to now reach out, and trust me, I'm like that little squirrel in the tree, I will get that nut out of the tree. How would you like me to actually do an interview? And I will try my best. I've got a couple of partners that I know. Put a yes in the chat box if you want me to do a session with Elizabeth Riley to find out how she's done it nearly 9 times. Because I think that is really going to start to attest to, hey, this is something that is definitely achievable. So this is something that I know that you guys are obviously wanting that. Brent, I see your hands going up. You've either given me a hardcore high five or you have a question that you're wanting to ask. Go for it.
Hi, Stuart. Hi, Stephen. I hopped onto the call a little late, but I just wanted to query specifically the 35 transactions that you need to close. Are there any restrictions on those transactions, i.e. in terms of CGI, gross commission income? Does it have to be a certain amount, or can it just be literally any transaction, possibly even including personal transactions? So just a bit of a technical question around there, because I think I'm quite close to it in terms of being at 31, and I don't have too much time left. So
Yeah, I'll follow up. I'll give you an answer, but I'll follow up just to make sure I'm 100% accurate on it. And Stuart might know some of this better than even I do, specifically to South Africa. But you guys have what are considered the qualifying transactions, right, which do have a minimum on there. So I believe it would still be, yes, qualified transactions. But Stuart, I don't know if you know for sure what those values are,
Yeah, and sorry for the technical question, but I have seen that reference to the qualifying transactions, which I think sort of pertain more to the revenue share and obviously the FLQA and that sort of thing. But yeah, it would be nice to just understand if it was just 35 any transactions, or if it was specific transactions sort of thing.
Do you have any specific ones that you don't believe would qualify, or types of transactions that you don't think would qualify?
I suppose personal transactions, presumably, even though you're paying a 4% transaction fee, presuming those won't count. But I haven't taken those into account because I just assume they won't count. And then it's just really small rental transactions, for instance, where maybe they don't quite qualify in terms of like the CGI. Yeah.
So my understanding is the icon is more specific to sales transactions and not rental transactions.
Okay, so there's a restriction in terms of that. It's got to be 35 sales.
And that's what we will clarify, is just to make sure, because if you're doing a small little rental, it doesn't really put it into that particular category. But I think that there is a minimum criteria when it comes to rentals. So if you are doing rentals, 25, 30,000 Rand rental per month, they could fall within the actual category. But we do need to just get that verified, because that's really where we have this little bit of a gray area.
Yeah. I appreciate you if you could look into that for me, Stuart. Thanks.
Yeah, because it's easy to go and do a small. Yeah, it's easy to go and do 10 or 12 small rentals in a particular month that are very, very small in the transit. But we will get that confirmed. And Brent, as soon as I have that answer, I will reach out to you personally so that you get that particular answer.
Fantastic.
Even on the rentals, though, Stuart, they're still paying a transaction fee, though, correct?
Correct. So
okay, all right.
But
yeah, we will follow up on it. But I just wanted to. I'm jotting some stuff down on my side that really what it comes down to is we work really close with the transactions departments in those countries, right? So in a way, you could always look at icon program as we're validating the numbers, right? We don't set the policy of exactly how every transaction is settled in every specific country, but we're validating the numbers once they turn them over to us. So we will double check with them specifically on that policy and find out for you.
100%. I did see some notes that did come around with regards to a value on the actual rentals, but let's get that all confirmed, because one thing that we did do is we negotiated, and trust me, Stephen, you'll be well aware of this. We negotiated on this icon to bring it down so that our South Africans can achieve it. So there was quite a negotiation, and I think if the American agents knew about this, they would want to come and start working here in South Africa, because they'll be going, really? You guys have made it, and I put inverted commas, a lot easier. So we definitely negotiated.
Yeah, this was I brought it up just in case anybody did have any questions on it, because I wanted to be prepared, because you're right, there was a change that we got to finalize in September here to move those numbers down. There used to only be one option, and honestly, that option was, yeah, right. It wasn't something that we want to see icon agents in the different countries, right? So we're making an effort to really dive into numbers, making sure we're looking at everybody to get it so that we can start seeing, hopefully the top percentage of the population in every country are achieving the icon. So this was the old ones, right? It still had the 150,000 in company cap, but then just had a straight 5 million in cap status transaction fees, and just was really not anything that I think aligned to what you guys were doing here. So even in the cultural, right, again, there used to be what we call like pathways to kind of achieve these things, and we moved them over to the points. So this is the new one, right? A lot more hopefully achievable. We dug into numbers with finance and transactions, and hopefully came up with something that we can start seeing some agents from South Africa achieving. So
absolutely. And that's us looking after our agents. That's what we do. We regard you all as a family. As much as people say, don't say a company is a family, we still have that family culture. And a family culture is one that looks out for each other. And that's exactly what we're doing over here. So we did do all the negotiations. I saw Sheila gave us one of those little shiny hearts that jumped up on the screen, because I'm sure she was aware of it. But we did negotiate. We got it down, and there it goes. It's popping up the actual screen itself. And we made sure that we are looking after to make sure that we can have as many icon agents as possible here in South Africa, because that is the recognition that we want to get to every single one of you. So are there any final thoughts, comments, or questions from anybody in the actual audience? So either turn a microphone for the last time or pop into the actual chat box, because if there's no more, Stephen, from yourself, any final thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I'll say one thing, because I know, Stuart, you're just waiting and itching for that first agent to achieve it in South Africa. And to give you a little bit of an idea, right? We've at the past EXP Con, in the past shareholders that we had some global icons there. We do a lot of special things at these large events for icons. They're just exclusive to the icons, extra, hospitality suites that they get access to and things like that. But when we do have the global icons, some of them do travel, to these, right? We had one come from Australia. We had one come from India. We've had a Puerto Rico and a UK agent come to some of these events, and they're like celebrities, because everybody wants to talk to the icon agents, from the other countries, and hear the differences and how they can relate, and yes, try to spark up referrals if they ever have somebody that's moving from a country to another. So we're definitely excited. We're hoping that we see somebody very soon from South Africa achieve. And yeah, thanks again for having us. We appreciate the invite to come and talk to you guys.
Absolutely. And definitely our excitement is actually boiling over at the moment, waiting for this first icon agent to land in South Africa so that we can recognize them. And trust me, it's going to be a bigger event. We will definitely take this to the next level. So, Stephen, I actually want to reach out and say thank you so much for coming out and joining us in this particular session, explaining the ICON program, really digging into it so our agents can actually understand that. Guys, it's always been a pleasure and honor to have you on these particular calls. Like I say at the end of all my sessions, the future of your real estate, it starts right now.